Hey everyone, welcome back to The Leadership Project with your host Mick Spears. Our vision is to inspire all leaders to challenge the status quo. We bring you weekly topics and thought-provoking guests to get you to stop, reflect, and think about what it means to be a leader in a modern world. Our aim is to help you become the leader you wish you always had, as we learn together and lead together. Today's episode is brought to you by my new book, You're a Leader, Now What? The Proven Path to High-Performance Leadership. The book contains many of the great lessons that we've been learning together during the Leadership Project podcast, together with many other lessons that I've collected over my 30-year career as a leader. The book is aimed at first-time leaders, but really there's lessons in there for everyone. It would be greatly appreciated if you could go and grab your copy on Amazon as either an ebook or a paperback, and if you could leave us an honest review on Amazon. Now, on with the show. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. I'm greatly honored today to be joined by Lindsay Tjepkema. Lindsay is the CEO and co-founder of Casted, the first amplified marketing platform that covers audio and video podcasting solutions and brings podcasting into very much a B2B world. We are going to talk to her a little bit about podcasting. It'll get a little bit meta as we go because this is a podcast. We're going to ask her about how she landed in this and what this, where she sees the future of podcasting for B2B, for internal podcasting inside businesses and how it can be used in employee engagement. We're going to go through a number of different things. We're also going to talk to her about leadership lessons that she's learnt along the way. So without any further ado, Lindsay, please do say hello to our audience. Tell us a little bit more about your background and what led you to be with us today.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for having me as a part of this. And I'm so happy to be here. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Lindsay. I am CEO and co-founder of this company called Casted that really came about because I spent 15 years as a B2B marketer and ran into some challenges I'm sure we'll get into today. And more or less decided to go out and be the change that I so desperately wanted to see. And here we are today.
Yeah, wonderful, Lindsay. So I think we can't let that go. Let's hear it. Tell us some of those lessons that you learnt along that 15 years that inspired you one day to go, no, I want to do it differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I, like I said, I spent 15 to 20 years in B2B marketing, always on the brand and content and experience side of things, the more creative side of marketing, and really saw this whole thing that we know as content marketing come onto the scene. I saw the playbook come together. I saw it take shape and really become central to any marketing strategy, specifically in B2B, became a huge part of my life. And the last role that I was in before starting Casted, I was leading a brand and content team for a global SaaS company. And I was brought in to build a team, build a strategy, build content. And as part of that, did a podcast, much like this one. We did some audio content and then eventually moved into audio and video content. And that was great. It was wonderful. We were experiencing some great anecdotal success. We had some great feedback, both internally with our team and our salespeople that loved using it. And then externally with people that enjoyed listening and were really engaging with it. However, when it came down to really the fundamental issue of why any B2B marketer does anything, which is like, how is this actually impacting the business? How is it driving brand? How is it driving revenue? The tools that I had available to me as a B2B marketer doing content and running a podcast really came up short. There was nothing to show me how it was driving business. And ultimately, when my CEO came to me and said, "Hey, I love this show. I love what we're doing. I listen every week. I'm such a big fan, but I'm so excited to hear how it's driving business." I had nothing for him. And that wasn't good. That wasn't good for me. That wasn't good for the business. He wasn't very excited. And so eventually, it wasn't immediately, but eventually I saw it as an opportunity and there's no way, this doesn't make any sense. There's no way that I'm the only one in this situation trying to understand how this really rich, important, relevant content is actually doing anything for the business. And said, hey, I think there's a solution here. There's a way that we could build a platform that changes all of that and that really connects the dots between content like this, that your audience is listening to now. And, how is it actually doing anything? What is it doing for the business? How is it helping me connect with my audience? How is it driving loyalty and brand and business?
So I'll share my own experience a little bit there, Lindsay. I started this podcast to have conversations that challenge the status quo about leadership. It was, I see a leadership crisis in the world. Only 16 to 20% of people in the world truly love their job and like their boss, right? So people are spending up to 1/3 of their life in workplaces that don't inspire them, or worse still, completely stress them out. So I started this podcast just to have wonderful conversations with thought leaders about leadership. And then, of course, as I go, and more than a year later, I start my own business off the back of it. And I know that it creates business through word of mouth. That's the only thing. Like, people will come to me and say, oh, saw your episode with Stephen Chedleski or whatever. They've seen an episode and they'll hang on to it, and then they'll contact me and say, oh, I want to know more and what you do and all this kind of stuff. But it's completely happen chance. I think that's all I can say. I have no analytics of how I use Buzzsprout, and Buzzsprout, thank you, Buzzsprout. I think you're a wonderful podcast host. But as someone that has not your level of marketing background, but some level of marketing background, when I get into my podcast analytics, about all I can tell is where are my listeners joining from? What device are they connecting in? Which episodes seem to resonate better than others? You know what? That's about it. That's it. So
right.
I know the majority of my audience is in the US. Second to the US is Australia, because originally I'm Australian. I don't live there now, but originally I'm Australian. That's about all I can tell. So tell me how you twisted that. How did you convert what is not that rich information into something that marketers can sink their teeth into?
Yeah, it's from step one, from the very, very first day, from before the first day, the whole purpose was to empower B2B marketers. Our big why is empowering B2B marketers to maximize and measure the value of their creativity and their connection, right? Like that's the whole big purpose. And so from step one, we didn't set out to be what already existed. We set out to be what was needed for B2B marketers in particular. And what that is an understanding, which you're getting to, of how are people engaging, right? It's great to know where people are coming from, where people are tuning in, what device they're listening on. Cool. That's great. That's not helpful. But what would be more helpful is what led them here. Where do they go from here? How do I own this audience, right? So if I'm going to build this big audience, if I'm going to create all this great content like you are, should I be sending them all away to some other platform to listen? If they find me there, cool. But ultimately, don't I want them to come to me, especially in B2B, where you're starting a conversation, you're sharing thought leadership, you're trying to build trust and credibility and loyalty on behalf of a brand, so that people want to buy from a brand. Long-term, big picture, on behalf of their brand, right? It's business to business. And so ultimately, how do we help people, how do we help marketers build that audience that they own, and get people coming to their own site and consuming this content on their own site? We help with that. And until ultimately, step by step, ad by ad, feature by feature, we've gotten to the point where we can tell you down to the account level who's engaging with your content. So not just how many, not just where are they from, but like what accounts, what companies, what brands are actually engaging with your content. And then beyond that, of your content, what are they most interested in? So of the messages that are most important to me as a B2B marketer to make sure that are resonating with my audience, are those messages resonating? And then on the flip side, of the audiences and the segments that are most important to me, are they engaging? And are those two dots connecting? That's what we can do now. And we continue to ask ourselves, like, of what we are building and of what we can build and of what we could build someday, how does it all exist to empower B2B marketers? And that's guided our roadmap, that's guided the decisions we've made, the things we've decided not to do. And that's the big difference, is serving B2B marketers.
So congratulations on your success. I mean, that is clearly a gap in the market and you're filling that gap. So well done. I think that's wonderful. I have heard you say that you believe that podcasting should be the center of a B2B marketing strategy. Tell us more about why you think that.
I do. Well, okay. So everyone who's listening today is doing so because they want to be in on something, right? It's connection. Connection is a basic human need. It's a basic human need. I think that nothing made that more obvious than the last couple of years, right? We need each other. We need connection. We need to feel like we're in on things. We need to feel connected to other people. And yes, reading great content, reading articles, consuming information is great for that. But it's better being in on a conversation, listening in on a conversation like everybody who's listening to this conversation is doing right now. Listening to, watching. Reason being, people can hear our inflection. People can hear our emotions. People can hear, like, you and I are connecting. And when other people join in on that, they feel connected too. And so everyone who's consuming this content right now is consciously or subconsciously going to be even a little bit more connected to you and to me and to both of our brands. And that's a human thing, right? And so why not tap into that as a brand? The most human brands win. The most human brands connect on a human level. And when we as marketers can take that and embrace that and do that in a way that's really authentic and really genuine and say, hey, I understand my audience. I know who I'm trying to connect with. I'm going to go have great conversations with people that is going to produce content that's really valuable and rich and relevant and engaging and educational and entertaining, that wins. And then on top of that, so that's the basic of why podcasts and audio and video content should be at the center. And then it's beyond that, it's also really efficient. So if you start with a podcast, if you start with an episode, if you start with a conversation, great. You have a source, a nucleus, if you will, of really rich, relevant, genuine, great, engaging content. But then you can wring that out. You can amplify it. You can pull it apart into smaller bits and pieces and use it in myriad other ways. You can create clips and key takeaways and use that on social media. You can give those clips to your sales team and your customer success team to help them further engage and further connect with your audiences and your current and potential customers. You can use your transcription to create additional written content. You can go back and use past episodes and put them into new playlists, and you can curate that information for ongoing things. Like, it's this conversation that we're having could be the start of so much more and so many more opportunities to further connect with an audience. And so yeah, it should absolutely be the center because it's really rich and engaging, and it's really efficient for teams that, especially more now than ever, are being faced to do more with less. It's a great starter to be able to pull apart and use again and again and again.
Yeah, I like this, Lindsay. And we do repurpose our content here on the show as well. It ends up being very powerful quotes that we end up posting on IG or on LinkedIn. Quite often our weekly newsletter comes out of a wonderful conversation that we've had with a podcast guest, etc. The three things that I'm hearing from you, or three words that pop into my mind, and you use one of these words a lot, which was connection. Really like that. The next word that popped into my head was authenticity. Yeah. And the third one was depth. In comparison to, let's say, other marketing channels. So what do I mean by authenticity? Copywriters spend hours perfecting that social media post that you might read, or that blog article, or that advertorial, or that advertisement. There's been hours and hours of work to be perfecting that words. In fact, it'll usually start with, I'm not talking to you here, you know this, Lindsay, but to the audience, it'll start with thousands of words and end up sometimes with as little as 3 words on a page.
Yeah.
But it's carefully curated 3 words. Whereas here, Lindsay and I are just having an authentic conversation, the things that pop into our head, the genuine knowledge and experience in Lindsay's head is coming out and being shared with you. And then the 3rd word is depth. The depth that you can go into in a podcast is far more educational, particularly if the host is very curious and wants to dig deeper onto a particular topic. So, and if I think about those 3 words, what do people want? Connection, authenticity, depth. All right. So
it's so true.
Yeah. Tell us more. How's my summary of that?
Spot on. 100%. And we all know that because we're all humans, right? I mean, you just ask yourself, you zoom out for a minute. It's like, okay, what do I want? It's not about what we're putting out into the world. It's what people want to consume to be more connected. And there's power in the pauses. There's power in the ums. There's power in the, let me think about that. And there's power in the, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked. Or, I was just having a conversation about that this morning. Like there's power in that. And when guests on a show or 2 people having a conversation, when one person gets excited, the other person gets excited, and then everyone who's listening in on that gets excited too. And when there's joy, people feel it. When there's sadness, people feel it. When there's pain, or when there's excitement, when there's hope, when there's really good advice, when there's passion, people feel that, and people want to feel that. And that's not just in what entertains us. That's not just in what we watch on Netflix or Disney Plus or go to the movies, right? It's also, people buy on behalf of their brands. B2B is human to human, right? And so we don't check our humanness at the door when we go consume content, when we go to make a big purchase decision on behalf of our company, or a small purchase decision. We want to buy from, we want to work with, we want to partner with, we want to give our dollars or our brand's dollars to the companies and brands that we believe in and that we feel connected to and that we share a vision with and we share passion with. And we all want to be a part of something that we believe in. And that sounds really big and rah-rah, and it is, but it even is, when you go buy office supplies, or when you have to choose some sort of software provider for something that might be payroll, right? All of these things we want, especially now with all that we've been through and that we continue to go through as people. We want to be a part of things that we, at least on some level, believe in. And conversations like this and mediums like this really help make that happen.
Really powerful, Lindsay. So people do buy from people. That's the first thing we need to remember. Mm-hmm. Every business is a people business, but then they buy from people or brands that they know, like, and trust. And how do you get to know and like someone and trust them? You get to know them, right? You get to hear from them and podcast. What a great way for someone to be able to talk about what is their purpose? What is their meaning? What are their values and beliefs? What do they believe in? And then you're naturally going to attract an audience of people that believe in the things that you believe and build that connection and build that trust. Yeah, really powerful, Lindsay. I want to bounce off that from B2B, because I've also seen you talking about companies having internal podcasts and you seeing that as something for the future. Why do you think that could be something that could be powerful into the future?
Yeah. Same reasons, different context, right? So we're all humans. We're living this. I don't have to tell you or anyone else what work is like, right? Some of us are remote. Some of us wish we were remote. Some of us are remote and hate being remote. Some of us are hybrid. Some of us are in an office and love it or hate it. There's a lot's happening to sum it up and oversimplify. Lots happening at work, right? And again, we're all humans, and we are all humans interacting with other humans that want to have connection. And whether we're in an office or scattered around the world working remotely, culture still matters. And that human element of business still matters, perhaps more now than ever. And so pre-pandemic, during pandemic, now, in whatever stage of the pandemic we're in at this point, we have seen a lot of interest in, buzz around, commitment to internal podcasting, to share conversations, to share vision, to build connection, to maintain and strengthen culture. Because again, a CEO, a business leader, a team leader can send out a memo, can send out a note, can send a message on Slack, can send an email. Cool, that's great. And could send out a podcast, could send out a video that says, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Hope you'll join me. Or here's this really fun, cool human thing that we're doing. Here's this initiative that we have going on with culture. Here's how I'm doing today. And again, that just establishes, for all the reasons that we already talked about, it's much more human. It's much more authentic. There's a lot more depth, and that all creates more connection, which we need in the workplace.
Yeah, so connection, authenticity. Now I'm seeing a bit of vulnerability come in there as well. If the boss is on that podcast, what about the employees themselves? Like, so making it an engagement tool to give everyone a platform so their voice can be heard and they can feel like they matter, feeling psychological safety because someone stuck a microphone in front of their mouth and said, say whatever's on your mind, right? What about engagement with the employees and getting them involved in the podcast?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that we're seeing that from the official podcast, recorded, edited, produced, sent out, and also in ways that we're seeing it being easier and easier and easier to create quick little snippets, like in Slack, something that we're really excited about, which I would lump into podcasting. There's a video feature, like you can record a little video and send it to your Slack group. And I do that. We did it earlier this week and my kids were in it because they wanted to be a part of it. And I think that's again, with authenticity and who we are as people, just having those moments captured of here's how I'm feeling, here's what's happening, here's what's going on in my world, and I'm interested in what's going on in your world. That matters. And I think, it is flattening. It has the opportunity to flatten in the very best way organizations where it's not just, air quotes, top down. It's everyone to everyone, and get a much better, more genuine, authentic picture of what's happening in this team and what's happening in that team over there and what's happening geographically across the business. It's a beautiful thing.
And we are spread all over the world, many companies, and you said before, some remote, some hybrid, some don't want to be in the situation they're in and they're trying to challenge that, etc. So what you're talking about is a medium that's very fast, it's very authentic. And coming back to what you said before about intonation, that memo situation, regardless of how much due care was put into wording of that memo, someone in the company is going to misinterpret what that memo said. And with a recorded message, whether it's video or audio, you get the intonation and you can probably get the emotion more than the written, right? Yeah, really powerful.
Absolutely.
All right. So we've spoken quite a bit about podcasting so far. I want to know more about Lindsay now. So what did you learn about yourself during 15 years prior to Cast, or 15 to 20 years in the marketing world? What did you learn about yourself during that journey?
Oh man, that I am a marketing nerd. I studied marketing in college. I went to grad school for it. I suppose I professionally fell in love with it. And so I learned a lot about marketing and about what people respond to, and worked at a lot of great places and a lot of not great places, and took with me the ideas and the opportunities, both from a branding, marketing, content strategy standpoint and what I really wanted to do. And I was able to focus my career job by job, year by year, but also from a leadership perspective, what I wanted to emulate, what I wanted to never do. And, as we all do. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, one of the things from a brand and marketing perspective was that it was time for a change, that this world needed disruption. So much of content marketing and B2B is still based on this playbook that was written around written content, around blogs and written text and ebooks and white papers, all of which are great. We still create them. I'm a big fan, huge proponent. But this playbook that we're all working from really was established at the beginning of my career and is largely the same. And so, over those 15 years, from a brand and marketing perspective, I realized it was time for a change there. And then from a learned experience and leadership perspective, you take pieces with you from every experience along the way, good, bad, and otherwise. And when I had the opportunity to start this business, there was a lot that I wanted to do and a lot that I didn't want to do. And you learn along the way, once you start doing those things, that it can be easier said than done to try to be the change you want to see. But that's the goal.
Yeah, tell me more about some of the learnings along the way. So anything that you'd like to share that sticks with you, like anything where you had an inspirational boss where you went, yes, I want to be able to do that, or the other end of the scale where maybe someone made you feel less worthy and you want to never repeat that mistake? Can you give, without getting personal, tell us?
Well, there was this one person and their name is, and their phone number is. I had, like a lot of people, so many different experiences where I tried to be what I needed to be for all the different situations I was in. And you get feedback, and air quotes, feedback along the way about, hey, you're too this, you're too aggressive, you're too assertive, or you're too nice, you're too friendly. You need to be more of this. You need to be less of this. You need to show up more this way. You're showing up too much this way. And it's incredible for, I think some people have an incredible capacity to really be grounded in who they are from the get-go and let a lot of that roll off their back. And for the rest of us, we have to have a realization at some point that those are just voices, and you need to boldly be who you are. And I had that realization a few years ago, and it's a choice you have to make every single day to really step into who you are and decide who you're going to listen to and what voices. But I had this realization that if I was in trying to please everyone and in trying to take all the feedback that I had received all the years about how I was to this and not enough of that, that ultimately I was left feeling like I was too much of everything and not enough of anything. And that leaves you feeling really hollow. And so when I had that realization a couple of years before starting Casted, and I was like, I kind of accepted this mantra of boldly be yourself. And I've been trying to do that ever since. And then in starting Casted, it was like, how can I try? I mean, you'd have to ask the team if it at all is coming through, but try to establish a place where everyone can boldly be themselves, and that it's not my version of this or my version of that. How can we set goals? How can we set guidelines and expectations? But we embrace who you are, and we embrace you bringing your whole self, and we embrace diversity in all of the ways, in all the ways that everybody speaks about diversity, but also in diversity in thought, diversity in background, diversity in expectations and in style. And that's really, really what I wanted to create. As much as I wanted to be the change that I wanted to see in B2B marketing, I also wanted to be the change I wanted to see in a workplace and in a culture and in a team where you really could feel like you are doing something that matters, you're a part of something that matters, and you can truly be you and how you want to work and what you can contribute and how you show up.
That's a great takeaway right there, Lindsay. So boldly be yourself. It's not an easy one to learn, and it does take time. So everyone listening, trust yourself on this one. It takes time. Be self-compassionate as you learn it, but this is what you need to do. And it can be in both ways, Lindsay. So one could be people are very astute at working out, how do I get on around here? And they start looking around at the behaviors around them, and it can be a learned behavior. And that learned behavior drives towards assimilation. But we don't want assimilation. We want you to show up as your authentic self, bring all of your gifts to the table so that we can celebrate you and celebrate who you are and everything that makes up who you are. So then we can hear your genuine thoughts, your experiences. We can celebrate your culture and your heritage and all of these things, because we'll all be richer because of it. It's not easy to learn that, because you either have those voices that you spoke about. Oh, you need to be more like this if you want to get on around here. Or the voice might be only in your own head, where you see other people and go, oh, I need to be more like that person because they're getting promoted and they're getting recognized and rewarded. And yeah, good lesson learned. Yeah, I love it. Love it, Lindsay.
Well, I think too, that as leaders, one thing that happens, and that anyone who's in a leadership position, and everyone is a leader, whether you're leading a team or a company or leading an initiative or leading a thought. I think broadly speaking, people need to be much more careful about, again, air quotes, feedback, to make sure before you give it, is it about something a person is doing, a way that they're behaving, a way that they're doing work, goals that they're not achieving, something that if they did a behavior, an action, that they could be more effective or successful given the goals and expectations of the role and of the company? Or is it about who they are? Is that feedback about the person? Is it about who they are as a human being? All too often we give, and I certainly have received, and I'm sure you have, and all of your listeners have too, received feedback about who we are. And that's not fair. That's not leadership. That's not even helpful, right? I mean, all of those things along the way, they stick with you. They become the voice in your head about you're too much of this and you're not enough of that. And therefore you're never going to be enough, or of anything. You're going to be too much of everything and not enough of anything. And that comes from, in large part, the feedback that we get about that's veiled and disguised as how we're doing a job or how we're performing, when really it's about who we are. And I think if we could all, anyone who steps, if this moment forward, anyone in a leadership position or steps in a leadership position would just magically stop doing that and would give feedback on how we're doing our jobs and how we're behaving and what we could do, not who we could be. Just imagine how much better the world would be, right? Yeah.
This is really powerful, Lindsay, and you've really got us challenging the status quo here. And this is what we need. We need to have these conversations. We wonder where things like imposter syndrome come from and where self-doubt comes from. Well, it comes from a lot of these voices, right? And there's other things too. There's Instagram, social media, and there's all kinds of things. But we've got a lot of people out there with a lot of self-doubt about who they are. They feel lost. They've got identity crisis. They're out there searching for their own purpose and wondering, who am I? And if someone's always in your ear telling you that you're not enough, you're going to eventually think that you are not enough, right? So this is really powerful. This is my biggest takeaway so far today. It's been a wonderful interview, but this is my biggest one. Really stop and think about the feedback you're about to give. You should give feedback. Feedback is a gift.
Yes.
And someone is having a self-awareness issue where they're not aware that their actions are impacting those around them and all of those things. You need to give the feedback, but it needs to be about the actions, not about who they are. Really powerful.
I mean, if someone, for example, is really loud, right? Big personality, very loud. And let's just say that they're in the office and they're disruptive, right? They're very chatty. And whenever they're in the kitchen, they're very chatty and they're very loud. And you and I can't have this podcast because I can hear them from the kitchen. They're so loud. And then, they're very chatty and they're very talkative. I could then say, hey, you are so loud. You have this huge personality. I just need you to turn it down. I need you to turn it down. I need you to really just take all of that energy and just turn it down. That's about who they are. Or I could be like, you have this huge personality. I love it. It's part of the reason that you're here. When you're in the office, could you be a little quieter? Could you be a little bit more conscious about what might be happening around you and channel that energy? Could you, be more conscious of how your voice carries? I don't know. That might be a really bad example, but it's just being conscious about in this feedback that needs to be given, is it about who they are as a person? Am I about to literally turn down their personality, or am I going to ask them to just turn down the volume on their voice? in certain situations. And those things matter, because we carry those things with us.
Yeah, well done, Lindsay. All right. The next one I think I want to ask about will be a nice segue from showing up as your authentic self. Now, you are an inspiring woman CEO. Now, let's face it, the statistics are atrocious. It's something that we all should be ashamed of. The percentage of women in leadership positions like yours is very low. And then even further, you are a CEO in a tech space. Yes, it's a marketing tech space, but I've seen you on stages talking to people about their tech stacks. And, I'm going to say I'm ashamed of it, but it's a male-dominated world. How do you show up as your authentic self and be courageous and brave and be there on that stage and hold your own? What is there anything that you tell yourself before you go on that stage? I want to unpack Lindsay's brain here about that process.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. I feel like the inspiration part is very subjective, so we'd have to ask others how they would feel. And I think it's really important to note, yes, I am a woman. I am a woman in a CEO position and founder position in tech. And I'm also, I'm white. And I think and there's other things that make me not as diverse even as we should see more of, right? I mean, we need a lot more of a lot of things in leadership roles, in tech leadership roles. So I am but one piece of what we need to see a whole lot more of. But that said, I think I've seen a lot of movement and embracing of the change. We talk a lot about the change that needs to be. And I think we can see it happening. Is it happening fast enough? No. But to me, I think it comes back to a lot of what we already talked about, like passion, authenticity, being true to myself and the vision that I have, not just for our team or our company, but really the change that is possible in the world because of the change that we can drive in B2B marketing. And I believe in it so fundamentally. I believe in it so passionately that I honestly see every opportunity like this to go share what I'm excited about. And what makes me really joyful and hopeful is how eager people are to listen and to watch, and that people are becoming more and more conscious. Truly, I truly see this happening even just in the 3 years that Casted's been around. And my career before that, people are much more conscious now than they've ever been before about the voices that they are listening to. And there is trust, but also verification. And there's also like, who is this person? Why should I be listening to them? Why should I be listening to them instead of somebody else? Why are they getting all of the airtime or stage time when other voices possibly should be? And so I have a lot of faith and a lot of excitement about that as well. And so I think that I'm excited to share what it is. Going back to your question, like what's going on in my head? And I just get so excited to share what I'm excited about, which is what we're building both on the human level here at Casted and in the brand and marketing movement that we're leading. That I don't know, that's all I'm thinking about. And much bigger picture, I'm just really excited to see the demand for change that's happening among audiences and the voices that they hear.
That's wonderful, Lindsay. And that passion comes through, and that passion is authentic, right? So it's authentically you being on the stage and speaking up about things that matter to you, about your purpose, about your meaning, or about your values and your beliefs. And that's very authentic. And that's kind of circling back to what I was saying before about assimilation. In my lifetime, certainly, and it is changing and certainly not fast enough, but in my lifetime for sure, strong women leaders of the past were exactly that. They were very strong, dominant. They were more manly than the man in the room. So the way I could describe it, Margaret Thatcher, women leaders in organizations that would wear a men's suit and behave like the other men in the room. It's like, but I'm seeing the shift now. I'm seeing women leaders come through that are authentically themselves, being comfortable with who they are and being able to stand up and articulate with clarity who they are, and then getting those people that will follow them willingly anywhere because they believe in the things that that leader believes, right? So it's shifting, not fast enough, but it's shifting. And thank you for all that you do to inspire others to do the same.
Oh, gosh. Well, thanks for letting me talk. I think it's so true because I think we absolutely have seen it, that being a woman leader, said or spoken or unspoken, there was definitely a push to be more like a man, and less like whatever anything that took you away from being likened to a honestly stereotypical leader, which is in so many people's vision. When you think CEO, so many people think, middle-aged, white man, straight, probably married, and college educated. And anything that takes you away from any of those things, it's like, well, be less of that. Don't talk about that. Don't show that. Look more like that. Act more like that. Show up more like that. And that's how you'll get ahead. And that's what the world has told so many people. And I'm so glad to see that there's a demand for that to change. I think we can all feel that starting to break. And exactly like you said, is it happening fast enough? No. But we can actively see it happening. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think going back to some of the fundamentals of the conversation that we're having, a lot of it is I think we get to see more. We get to see more of what's happening in companies and politics and brands. We get to see behind the curtain a lot more. And we realize as a people that we have a lot more, our voices are loud and that we can demand differently. I mean, you're seeing events where people are saying, I'm not going to this event unless there's diversity on that stage. And I'm not going to a panel of people who all look the same. It needs to be different. And so that's very cool. It's very cool to see that happening.
In my last company that I worked for before I broke away and started my own company, I co-authored a paper with one of my team that was called Mammals. And it was about panels that were all men, right? And I refused. I used to speak at conferences all around the world on urban mobility. And I just put it out on LinkedIn and said, I will never go on a panel again that was only men, and drew a line in the sand. I took a step further than that, and this was a big realization for me. I then stopped altogether and I took a step back and I looked inside my team and I realized that every time it was me that was standing on that stage, and I think I'm a very accomplished public speaker and of course I enjoy it, etc. But every time it was me that was standing on the stage, I was robbing someone else of an opportunity for them to grow and to enjoy and to get that, right? So eventually I just stopped talking on the stages altogether. But it started with I looked around on the stage one day and went, I sighed. I was like, yep, the usual suspects on the stage again. And but it is starting to shift for sure.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
You are a CEO and a founder. Do you have any advice to any other women out there that have always wanted to be the CEO? They've always wanted to found their own company, but there's something holding them back. Anything you'd like to say?
Oh, man. I know so many things that I would like to say. For me, when I was really wrestling with whether or not to do this, a lot of it came back to it was not professionally, that was not the issue. It was something I absolutely wanted to do professionally, something that I was excited about for my career. It was a turn in my career that I didn't see really happening. It was like, oh, well, this is something I'm going to do. Personally, I was like, am I going to do this? I have 3 kids at the time. They were 7. And then I have 3 kids, including twins. And my twins were 5 and my oldest was 7. I had a husband who had also a demanding career, and he was traveling 3 to 5 days a week. And, you see anywhere, what's your perception of leading a tech startup? Like, it's grueling and very demanding. I was like, am I going to do this? Am I going to do this to my family? Am I going to do this to my life? Am I going to blow up my life? And what people kept telling me was, look, it's what you make of it. It is, you have a lot more control than you think you do. And I think that that's true in many parts of our life. But when you go start a company, the culture and the demands and the expectations, especially at first, once you start getting into venture capital and you start tethering yourself to investments and things, it's still much more in your control than you think it is. However, it does get tougher, especially in the early days when you're setting something up. It's what you make of it. I mean, we have a very, very flexible culture, and that was defined by me and by us. It's what we want to see. We were talking about wholeheartedness and what our culture looks like. It's what we and I wanted to build. And so I would say if anyone is looking to be a CEO and a founder, but specifically you asked about women, don't let that get in the way. It does not have to be pizza under your desk at 2 a.m. and like, you don't need to go find a dorm room and work there. It can be the vision that you have, and it can fit into the container that you give it. And I think being super stereotypical, women in particular have an uncanny ability to be really effective and efficient, and to not waste time, and to say, hey, I'm gonna fit this thing into this container because I have to, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it there. And so I think that if your business, if your endeavor, if your idea needs to fit into a certain box, it can, and it will. And at the end of the day, if it's something that you can't imagine not doing, you have to do it. You don't have much of a choice.
Seems to be a key message there about setting some boundaries as well.
Yeah.
Tell me how you set your own boundaries.
Oh man, I'm not always good at it. So anybody who's listening who knows me is like, what's she talking about? But it is important to me, and I do talk about it a lot. I read a book called Essentialism, which by Greg McKeown. I probably am butchering his last name, but it's a really good book. And the big takeaway that I had from that was the trivial many versus the critical few. Like, there's so much trivial stuff happening all the time. Meetings and conversations and people in your ear and things you could do, versus the critical few conversations you should be having, people you should be focused on, things you should be doing. And to your point, that absolutely comes down to boundaries. Where are you going to draw the line? Where are you going to say, you know what, when are you going to say no? What are you going to say no to? What are you going to take off your plate? What are you going to not do? And something that you said earlier about speaking, anytime you say yes to something, you're making someone else say no. You're depriving somebody else of an opportunity. And so by taking it all on yourself, by not drawing those boundaries, not only are you making yourself unhappy and overloaded and overworked, you're depriving someone else of a learning opportunity or an opportunity to shine or to do something that they really love or could really get a lot out of. So yeah, boundaries are huge. No one's going to come along and tell you to work less ever. Even those that really love you. Well, maybe those that love you and want you to not work so they can spend time with you, but no one professionally is going to say, hey, you're doing a great job. You should probably do less, just work less. You have to be the one that sets up those boundaries yourself, that says, you know what, it's after this time at night, it's before this time in the morning, or it's midday and I'm going to go do this thing. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm going to go on vacation. No one's going to do that for you. And so, yeah, boundaries are super, super duper duper important. And prioritization of what really matters is also critical.
Yeah, really good, Lindsay. And the question I've got there is, are you busy being busy, or are you busy adding value? And are you working on the things that really add value and matter? And when you do try to do less things, you do those less things with far more impact. You do a much better job of them. And there's also just a simple thing around the 80-20 rule, right? So it's the Pareto principle. Work out what are those things that actually shift the needle and focus on them. And like you were saying, there could be other people in your team that can take some of that other stuff off you anyway, and they'd be happy to. They want to thrive on it, right? So yeah, really good.
Absolutely.
That's
and it's really hard. I am not go through waves where I'm better times, but I think going back to your last question, stepping into the founder role, you have to really, at the least, really, really conscious of that. Really conscious of what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Because, and at least know when you're not doing a good job at it, so that you're open to people saying, hey, you need to give me this, you need to delegate, you need to reprioritize your calendar, you need to focus. Because if you are blind to it, that's a dangerous, it's dangerous, and it's just begging for early and often burnout.
Self-awareness goes a long way there. And you said about blind, if you've got blind spots, and everyone does, by the way, every single person on the planet has got blind spots. So empower someone on your team to help you show you what yours are, and you'll benefit from it. Yeah, really good. That's probably a good time for us to start wrapping up, Lindsay. I'd like to go into our rapid round now. These are the same 4 questions we ask all of our guests. So the first one, what's the one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were 20?
Oh gosh, that you can. Like, actually, you can.
That's brilliant. All right, thank you. What's your favorite book?
Daring Greatly by Brene Brown.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well done. And what's your favorite quote?
I'm going to be super cheesy and go with Dave Matthews, because he's on my mind. I have like all of these Dave Matthews things in the background because I love him. But one of his songs says, I will go in this way and find my own way out. And later the song says, I'm only this far and only tomorrow leads the way. And I think that there's so much in that about believing in yourself and being confident in your ability to go into hard things and find your own way through them.
Love it. And I love the reason why that's so meaningful to you. And finally, we do have a lot of podcasters that listen to the show. And of course, like I said, you are an inspirational leader. You diminished yourself a little bit when I said that before, but you are an inspirational leader.
Yeah.
If people want to know more about you personally, Lindsay, or they want to know about Casted, how do they get hold of you?
Thank you. I'm really active on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn and connect with me there and follow me there. And then we have a bunch of podcasts at Casted, I'm sure you can imagine. I have one called, it's newish, called Casting a Vision, that I interview leaders, much like these conversations. And then we have Casted Podcast, an Amplified Marketing Podcast, where you can learn all sorts of things about this approach and about Casted and about me and what we're building.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lindsay. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. Likewise.
Today's episode was brought to you by my new book, You're a Leader, Now What? The Proven Path to High Performance Leadership. The book contains many of the great lessons that we've learned together here on the Leadership Project podcast, together with lessons that I've collected over my 30-year career as a leader. The book is aimed towards first-time leaders, but really there's something in there for everyone. If you would like to show your appreciation for this show, we would greatly appreciate if you were able to go and get your copy of the book on Amazon as either an ebook or a paperback, and if you could leave us an honest review on Amazon. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Project podcast at mixbeers.com. A big call out to Faris Sadek for his sound design and editing of our audio and video content, and to the whole team at TLP, Joanne Gozon, Gerald Calabo, Rika Vidanes, and my wonderful supportive wife, Say Spears, who is also our operations manager. This show would simply not be possible without you. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review at Apple Podcasts. You can catch the video podcast and our video of the week at the Leadership Project YouTube channel, and you can join the conversation at the Leadership Project Facebook community group. We look forward to bringing you more great content and interviews next week as we continue to learn together and lead together. In the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and always remember to challenge the status quo.